You know the number before you look. That's the part nobody talks about. The way you already know. The way your thumb hovers over the banking app for just half a second longer than it should. Like your body is doing a quick cost-benefit analysis before letting you see the thing. 3 seconds. 2. You open it. 0. Not 0 like rounding, not 0 like you forgot about a few hundred sitting somewhere. 0 like the math at the bottom of the page that doesn't move. 0 like you are 28 years old, you have a job, you have a phone, you have a streaming subscription you keep forgetting to cancel, and you have nothing saved. You close the app, you put the phone face down on the table, and then you do the thing that everyone at 28 with 0 savings does. You don't tell anyone, not your partner, not your best friend, not the one person in your life who you share everything with. Because there is something about this specific number, this particular kind of empty, that doesn't feel like a problem you're working on. It feels like a verdict, like something has been decided about you. Like if you say the number out loud, it becomes permanent in a way it isn't yet, when it's just living quietly in your chest at 2 a.m. So you don't say it. You pour a glass of water, you watch something on your phone. You think about a plan you'll start tomorrow. Level 1. How you got here. Here's the thing about how you got here. It wasn't one decision. It was never one decision. It was 1,000 small ones, each of them completely reasonable at the time. The year the car needed work and the emergency fund went. The period when work was slow and the savings plan paused, and then just sort of never unpaused. The relationship that ended and reorganized your whole financial life in ways you're still untangling. The student loans that ate the margin before there was ever a margin. The city that costs more than it should and the salary that grew slower than it needed to. And the decade that moved faster than you thought decades could move. You didn't blow it. You just never really started. And now it's 28, and the number is 0. And the silence around that is louder than you expected. You're not alone in that silence. But right now, it feels like you are. It always does. Level 2. The wake up. There's a moment. Everyone who's ever been here has one. A specific, ordinary, unremarkable moment that cracks something open. Maybe it was the medical bill. You didn't think it would be that much. It's never supposed to be that much. But there it is, sitting in the stack of mail you'd been ignoring, a number with too many digits that the insurance didn't cover. And you go to move it from the pile and something in you just stops. Because you don't have a plan for this. You don't have anything for this. There's no account to pull from. No cushion to absorb it. There's just the number. And below it, another number, the payment due date. And between those two numbers is the full weight of what 0 savings actually means in real life. Not in theory, not as a statistic, as a problem happening to you right now with a due date. Or maybe it was simpler than that. Maybe it was a text from your college roommate. Just closed on the house. 3 words, a photo attached, the front porch, their kid in the yard. And you sat with the phone in your hand for longer than you meant to. Not because you're not happy for them, you are, genuinely, but because somewhere underneath the genuine happiness is a question you can't quite silence. Not why them, but why not me yet? And the honest answer, the one you don't say out loud, is because you have nothing to put down. Or maybe it was a conversation. Someone asked casually, the way people do at 28, what your retirement plan looked like. And you gave the answer you always give, the one that sounds like a plan, that uses the right words in roughly the right order, and they nodded, and you moved on. But that night, you lay in the dark and you replayed what you'd actually said. And you realized it wasn't a plan. It was a placeholder for a plan. It was the verbal equivalent of the app you keep downloading and deleting. It was hope dressed up as strategy. And that's when it hit you. Not the panic, the clarity. The question isn't how did I get here? The question is what happens if I stay? Level 3, the reality check. Before we go further, you need to know something. You're not the exception. You're not a cautionary tale. You are so far from alone in this that the data, the actual verified data, will either devastate you or release you, probably both. According to the Federal Reserve's Survey of Consumer Finances, the median retirement savings for Americans under 35 is around $18,000. The median. Which means half the people in your age bracket have less than that. And when you factor in Americans who have no retirement account at all, no 401k, no IRA, nothing, the numbers collapse further. Roughly 1 in 4 working-age Americans has 0 retirement savings. 1 in 4. Vanguard's How America Saves report puts the median 401k balance for workers under 35 at around $12,000. Not the average. The median. Half of people in your bracket have less, and Fidelity recommends that by age 28 you should have 1 times your annual salary saved. By 30, 3 times. Look at the gap between where most people are and where the benchmarks say you should be. That gap is not a personal failure. That gap is a national condition. If you're in Canada, 37% of Canadian workers say they live paycheck to paycheck. The average household debt-to-income ratio sits above 180%. You're not behind the curve. You're in the middle of it. If you're in Australia, the average superannuation balance for Australians aged 25 to 29 is approximately $51,000 for men and $36,000 for women, against a recommended retirement target of around $595,000. Most people aren't close. None of this is meant to comfort you into complacency. It is meant to pull you out of the shame spiral long enough to actually think clearly. Because the shame is the thing that keeps the number at 0. The shame is what makes you close the app and put the phone face down. The shame is what makes a solvable problem feel like a permanent sentence. So hear this. You are not uniquely broken. You are commonly stuck. And those are completely different things. One of them can be fixed. Level 4. The honest math. But let's be honest about the numbers, because you deserve honesty more than you deserve comfort. Time is the only thing in personal finance that cannot be recovered. You can earn more money. You can spend less. You can switch jobs, negotiate, side hustle, inherit, get lucky. But the years between 18 and 28 are gone. And the reason that matters, the specific numerical reason it matters, is something you've heard before and probably dismissed before you really let it land. Compound interest. Here is what it actually means in your life right now. If someone invested $500 a month starting at 22, right out of college, at a 7% average annual return, by 65 they'd have approximately $1.4 million. That same $500 a month, same 7% return, starting at 28, around $1.1 million. Same money, same discipline, 6 fewer years. But those 6 years are worth roughly $300,000 by the time you retire, because of where they sit on the curve. The 6 years between 22 and 28, at $500 a month and a 7% return, are worth approximately $300,000 by the time you retire. That is the invoice sitting in your mailbox right now. Not as punishment, just as math. And here's the part nobody talks about. It's not just that you're starting late, it's that you know you're starting late, and that knowledge does something to you. It creates a kind of paralysis that looks like procrastination from the outside, but is actually something closer to grief. You're mourning a version of your financial life that didn't happen. The one where 23-year-old you was disciplined and clear-headed and started early. And now 28-year-old you would be coasting on a cushion somewhere. That version of you doesn't exist. And every time you sit down to start a budget or open an investment account, you brush against that grief. It makes the whole thing feel heavier than it should. It makes starting feel like an admission, the admission that those years are gone. They are. And the sooner you stop fighting that fact, the sooner you can do the only thing that actually matters now. Start. Level 5. The turn. Here's the thing nobody tells you about starting at 28 with 0. You have something 25-year-olds don't have. You have a reason, not an abstract reason, not someday I'd like to be comfortable. A reason with weight, a reason you can feel in your chest, the medical bill, the text from your roommate, the 2 a.m. silence. Those aren't just the things that woke you up, they're fuel. And fuel directed at the right moves changes everything. So here is what the right moves actually look like. Not in theory, in practice. Starting today, the first move is not an investment. The first move is a buffer, $1,000. That's it. $1,000 in a separate high-yield savings account that you do not touch. Not because $1,000 will save you in a crisis, it won't, but because the absence of any buffer is what turns small problems into catastrophic ones. And catastrophic problems are what drain savings accounts that don't exist yet. Financial fragility, the inability to absorb unexpected expenses, is one of the primary reasons retirement savings never accumulate. The leak has to be plugged before you can start filling the tank. Plug the leak first. The second move is automation. Not a plan, not an intention, automation. The money moves before you see it, before the spending decisions happen, before Tuesday night when you're tired and the takeout is easier and the contribution feels inconvenient. You're not going to out-willpower the way your brain processes money. Set it up so willpower isn't required. If your employer offers a retirement match, in the US that's a 401k, in Canada an RRSP through a group plan, in Australia it's already happening through your super fund. The minimum starting point is contributing enough to capture whatever match exists. That is a 100% return on your money before a single dollar of investment growth occurs. You don't turn down a 100% return. In the US, a Roth IRA allows you to contribute up to $7,000 annually as of 2024. The tax-free growth on that account is one of the most powerful tools available to a late starter. In Canada, if you've never contributed to your RRSP, you may have accumulated significant contribution room over the years, room that carries forward. Check it. Your TFSA may also have up to $95,000 in cumulative room as of 2024 if you've been eligible since inception. That is not a small number. In Australia, your employer is already contributing at least 11% of your earnings into your super fund. You may not have nothing. You may have something you haven't looked at in years. Log in. Check the balance. Then consider voluntary contributions on top. The steps are not complicated. The hard part was never the steps. The hard part was the silence, the shame, the closed app. You just walked through that. You're still here. Level 6. The real numbers. Let's talk about what this actually looks like in numbers. Because numbers are where vague intention becomes actual movement. If you're in the US, at 28, starting from zero, at a median household income of around $65,000, redirecting 15% toward retirement contributions, a combination of your 401k and a Roth IRA, means setting aside roughly $813 a month. At a 7% average annual return over 37 years to age 65, that is approximately $1.7 million. Built from nothing, starting today. At 28, Social Security isn't going to carry you alone. The average monthly benefit is around $1,800. But it's a floor. You build above it. And $1.7 million sitting in tax-advantaged accounts at 65, drawing down at 4% a year, produces around $68,000 annually on top of that. That is a life, a real one, built from a standing start at 28. In Canada, a 28-year-old contributing $900 a month across RRSP and TFSA at a 6 to 7% return can reasonably target $950,000 by 65. CPP and old age security add a partial foundation on top. Not enough alone, but not nothing either. In Australia, with the 11% compulsory employer contribution plus voluntary top-ups of just $200 a month, a 28-year-old earning $70,000 annually can project a retirement balance approaching $450,000 by 67. ASFA's comfortable retirement standard requires around $595,000. You're not out of range. Now here is the honest caveat. These numbers assume consistency. They assume you don't stop when life gets hard. And life will get hard. There will be years the contribution drops. There will be expenses that eat the margin. There will be a 33-year-old version of you who's tired, and a 38-year-old version who's overwhelmed and looking for a reason to pause. The plan is not the numbers. The plan is the system that keeps the numbers moving even when you don't feel like it. Automation, accounts you can't easily access, contributions so routine they stop feeling like sacrifice and start feeling like rent. Something you pay without thinking about because that's what you do now. You set it up once. You protect it constantly. You increase it whenever you can. That's the whole plan. It's not elegant, but it works. Level 7, the reframe. Here's what I need you to hear before we close. 28 with zero is not a disqualification, not as a platitude, not as comfort, as a verifiable claim. Research from the Center for Retirement Research at Boston College has tracked for years that a significant percentage of late starters, people who begin serious retirement saving in their mid to late 20s, can and do reach retirement security when they maintain consistent contributions and make strategic use of tax-advantaged accounts. The math is harder, the runway is shorter, but the destination is not closed to you. And there is something else, something that doesn't show up in the compound interest tables. You know something now that you didn't know at 25. You know what it costs to not start, not in theory, in your body, in the closed app and the 2 a.m. silence and the face-down phone. You know the weight of that zero in a way that someone who's never carried it doesn't. And that knowledge, that specific, hard-won clarity, is the thing that will keep you going when the novelty of the new plan wears off, when the contribution feels inconvenient, when the future feels too abstract to justify the present sacrifice. The 25-year-old with a retirement account they barely check doesn't have that. You do. You are 28. You have, if you're in good health, potentially 50 years of life ahead of you, 30 years until standard retirement age, 30 years in which the math, as unforgiving as it is, still works in your favor if you begin now, today. Not with a perfect plan, not with a large number, with something, a small, consistent, automated something that you protect the way you protect anything that actually matters to you. The shame belongs to the silence, and you just broke the silence. You read this, you sat with the number, you didn't close the tab. That matters more than you know, because the difference between the person who turns it around at 28 and the one who turns 33 with the same problem isn't intelligence or income or opportunity. It is the willingness to look, to stop putting the phone face down, to stop letting the ceiling go unnamed. You named it. Now build past it. The zero is not what you are. It's where you were the day you decided to stop looking away. Write that date down, because someday, not at 65, maybe at 33, maybe at 38, you'll want to remember the exact day the number started to move. The exact day you decided that the silence wasn't protection anymore. It was just a delay. And you're done delaying. If this found you at the right time, subscribe. Drop where you're starting in the comments. 0, negative, whatever the number is. No judgment, just honesty. Because the people in the comments who are honest about their number today are the ones who come back in 2 years to tell you what it became. New video every week. See you in the next one.